My name is Sarah Thompson, and right now I'm hurtling down the 405 past the gleaming towers of Bellevue in a beat-up Subaru, my knuckles white on the steering wheel because I never thought I'd find myself back in this world of glass and glass-ceiling ambitions. 10 years ago, I traded in campus life for Navy SEAL training, sealed my teeth shut, and learned that discomfort breeds strength. Today, I'm headed to my sister Emily's big reveal at Blue Harbor AI, a family-friendly demo leadership insisted I attend. But every mile I close between rent-controlled Fremont and this silicon-spun dreamscape makes my chest tighten. This isn't homecoming, it's ambush. Emily's invite arrived in a branded email, its subject line innocuous Thompson family join us for a celebration, but I recognized the code PR hedging. She needs me on stage to make her look good, to show that the Thompson bloodline still has a hero among them. Reality check. They sold my childhood car. They never asked how my metals smelled after a firefight, and they ousted me from every family photo. Yet here I am, buttoned into a charcoal wool blazer that smells faintly of mothballs and hierarchy, the same blazer I wore to recruit new talent at the Microsoft campus 3 weeks ago. Under my lapel, I've clipped the compass I carried through Kandahar, brass nicked its needle-frozen north, a reminder that truth always points one way. This morning, I slipped it into my pocket so only I could feel its weight. Traffic snarls at 5 p.m. Frustration mounting. I glance at my phone. Emily's latest text reads, "Can't wait to see you shine, sis," followed by a corporate logo. She means shine the spotlight off her missteps. 6 months ago, I learned from Marcus, my old SEAL buddy turned VA caseworker, that Emily's been funneling PTSD aid funds into a shell company linked to Google contracts she oversees. I tried warning our parents. They didn't want to get involved, so I swallowed the injustice. I left voicemails that bounced back texts that fell silent. Now, the same sister who never applauded my Bronze Star wants me to cheer her on for a new AI rollout. I cinch my seatbelt and press my thumb to the fingerprint reader on my phone. No notifications except a flagged email from Marcus. They're meeting tonight. If you're in town, slip in and grab those docs. Don't trust the front door. By the time I pull into the visitor lot behind Blue Harbor's mirrored headquarters, dusk has settled, and the building is alight like a beacon for self-made geniuses. I pause at the entrance, adjust my ponytail, and remind myself I'm not that scared 16-year-old who once froze at her first oath ceremony. I'm Sarah Thompson, ex-SEAL cybersecurity director, a woman who's stared down death and lived to tell about it. I slip past the welcome desk, one glance at their guest list, and I'm VIP Thompson in scrolling neon, and follow the crowd into the atrium where Emily is already posing for pictures in a buccal skirt suit, her glass of Pinot lithely held like a prop. Behind her, a massive LED wall loops code blossoms into abstract art. The PR flacks are smiling too hard. Their teeth are plastic. My heart hammers. I move closer, make a detour through a side corridor, and find myself in the server room instead of the showcase floor. The hum of machines is a lullaby of truth, and I pull the compass from my pocket, feel its cold brass pulse against my palm. On the nearest rack, I see a laptop left unlocked, Emily's signature ET stuck in the lid. Risk flares in my chest. If I get caught, they'll feed me to corporate sharks. But Marcus warned that if I don't snag those emails tonight, the shell funds will be laundered clean by morning. I draw in a breath of recycled air and slip in. The lock screen shows Emily's face beautiful, untroubled. I hover my finger over the mouse, then pause. There's my old Medal of Camaraderie pinned to a lanyard on the desk, a crude circle of spent 5.56 brass welded into a disc. Marcus made it the night before our final Kabul op when we all thought we'd make it home. It's covered in fingerprints, and I trace the dent where it buckled under blast. That medal was real honor. This launching pad scam is sacrilege. I tuck it into my jacket as insurance. If push comes to shove, I'll have proof that at least one piece of history can't be erased. I tap Emily's password hint, first base city, and enter Seattle. Access granted. My sister's inbox floods onto the screen tax codes NDA attachments, and there buried in subfolder Finance, Plastro Q3, a PDF titled VA PTSD Disbursement. Transfers. I click it. My breath catches as I scroll thousands of veterans cut off while six-figure wire transfers flow into Blue Harbor Investments LLC, a dead-end entity with no public record. My heart pounds, and for a moment, I think I hear Marcus's voice. They'll come for you if you go public. Sarah, be sure you've got backup. I open a new draft email to Rachel Kim, the investigative reporter I trust who once broke a story on pharmaceutical price fixing. Her tip line is still live. I attach the PDF. My finger hovers over send. Outside the server room, the opening keynote is starting. Emily's voice echoes, "At Blue Harbor, we believe AI can heal the world." A wave of disgust crashes over me. She's selling moral vacuums as solutions, just like in those dystopian sci-fi flicks. I close the laptop, stuff it into my bag, and head back out, compass still in hand, medal of camaraderie in my pocket, and a downloaded photo of Emily smiling next to her father, each oblivious to the shame she'll bring. As I slip through the crowd, a hush falls over the atrium. People are moving toward the stage. I step around a glass prism sculpture that fractures the light like how Emily fractured every trust she ever had. Down the escalator, I pass Linda Thompson, our mother, clapping politely, her CEO composure intact, and David Thompson standing stiffly at her side, scanning the room for familiar faces. Neither notices me. I want to shout the truth to slap that PDF onto the podium, but instead I slip around the corner into a stairwell. The hum of voices fades behind a fire door. I lean against the cool metal sweat damp at my collar. The compass in my hand points north, but my heart oscillates between duty to the men and women whose aid was stolen and self-preservation. I'm about to call Rachel when footsteps echo above. A shadow falls across the stairwell window, Marcus wide-eyed slipping down toward me. He has the look of a man who's been chased through cobble streets. He crouches beside me. "They know," he says under his breath. Emily forwarded the logs. I compromised her server moments ago. Pain strikes my gut. She saw me. I think of every birthday card I sent that went unanswered. Every medal I earned that never made it onto her mantle. My mouth goes dry. He holds out his phone, a blinking group chat full of corporate lawyers and VA officials comparing their next cover story. My chest tightens. There's no turning back. I've downloaded everything. The PDFs, the spreadsheets, the bank wires. The question is, do I go through the front door or the back? If I call the network now, I'm exposing myself as much as Emily. If I don't, thousands of vets go without therapy, without support, abandoned in silence. My compass trembles in my hand. I press my thumb to the screen one more time, then look up at Marcus. There's a wildness in his eyes, the same look we shared on the night we voted to storm that compound. "I'm in," I whisper. He pushes a button on his phone and a download spinner appears. Secure upload to kimtipline.com. As the file transfers, the lights in the stairwell flicker, too sudden to be coincidence. The fire door shakes as someone pushes outside. Emily's heels click on the concrete stairs. She pauses at the landing, breath hot with betrayal and corporate fear. I can't see her face, but I know she's come for me. My hand tightens on the compass, and I feel every year of silent injustice coiling into a single strand of purpose. Game on. I tell Marcus, voice low but steady. The upload reaches 100%. I'm about to press send when Emily swings the door open and steps in. Her eyes flare, calculating. "Sarah," she says, her voice cool as the glass atrium. "What are you doing with my files?" I stand straight, meet her gaze without flinching. The compass swings in my palm, needle still north. What I should have done years ago. I answer. "I'm bringing you down." And in that charged silence, two sisters facing off in a neon-lit stairwell. Everything we ever were and everything we've lost hangs in the balance. The file sends. My phone buzzes with confirmations. The next move is hers, or mine. A single beep. Message sent to Rachel Kim. The world tilts on its axis. I step forward. Sarah, I saw the PDF fly across your screen. Don't pretend you're some righteous whistleblower, because that's not what you are. Emily had said, her voice so calm it stung more than a shout. I didn't flinch. The stairwell's fluorescent bulbs cast long shadows, and I felt their edges sharpen around us like knives. I am M, I answered, sliding the compass from my pocket and laying it on the concrete step between us. The brass surface was cold, the needle trembling a fraction before it found true north. That needle always pointed to truth. You abandoned it the day you betrayed every veteran who ever bled for this country. Emily's throat worked something I'd never seen in her. She stared at that little compass like it was an accusation in physical form. You think you're a hero, she whispered, but you're not here to save anyone. You just want revenge. I stared back, my pulse steady despite the stakes. Revenge, I asked softly. No, I want accountability. And if that wrecks your career, so be it. She yanked her phone out of her pocket and swiped. Half a dozen security guards appeared on video, racing down corridors. You've pushed way too far, she said, her voice low. They'll lock you up for industrial espionage. My chest tightened. She was right. Victoria Chen, Blue Harbor's chief of security, would throw me into a holding cell on a tech espionage charge before I could explain anything. But I'd already uploaded the files to Rachel. I'd already emailed the chairman of the Senate VA Oversight Committee. The download spinner on my phone still spun another silent witness ticking toward completion. Let them try, I said. My jaw hardened. Because I'm not the one who hid behind corporate boardrooms while vets died without help. Emily's eyes flickered. Was that guilt? Maybe, but she masked it with anger. You'll ruin every single person in this building, she spat. Your sister, our family, our company. Do you really want to be responsible for that? The word family hit me like a punch. She was weaponizing the one connection I'd tried to salvage for years. But I didn't back away. I bent, picked up the compass, and pressed it into her hand. I want to save them, I said quietly. Including you. Her fingers closed over the brass, and for a moment we were two kids again, trading tokens on the front porch of our childhood home. Then she jerked the compass away. You don't get it, she said. You never did. I straightened and met her gaze. Maybe I did, I said. Maybe that's why I'm here. The file transferred ding on my screen. I heard it even over the distant murmur of the keynote echoing through thin walls. Emily froze. The upload to kimtipline.com was complete. She looked at me like she'd been stabbed. You did it, she huffed. You actually did it. I nodded, because someone had to. Because no line can stay crossed if it means betraying those who trusted you. She took a step back, her heel clicking on the metal grate. So now what she said, you want me to fall on my sword? You want me to watch everything I built collapse? I swallowed. I want the truth out. Then I want to see how badly you care when the world's eyes are on you. Emily's face cracked. You're crazy, she said. They're 100 times more powerful than you. I gave her a small smile. Maybe, but I have history on my side and the truth. She spun on her heel and sprinted back up the stairs, vanishing around the corner before I could stop her. My heart hammered, and I ducked into the stairwell's darkest corner, drawing in a shaky breath. The compass was gone from my pocket, but I didn't need it. I felt its pull inside my chest. I pulled out my phone and watched the email confirmations cascade in Senate Chair at VA.gov. Mailed Senate Chair at VA.gov of Rachel K8 Investigative Press org. Mail to Rachel K8 Investigative Press org. several major metro news at media.com, mail to several major metro news at media.com. My hands trembled not from fear but from adrenaline because I'd just lit a fuse in the heart of a corporate dragon. The stairwell door at the bottom rattled security, probably. I dropped into a crouch, pressed my ear to the door, listened as footsteps approached. They paused, then moved on. I exhaled, closed my eyes for a second, and opened them to the compass carved into the concrete beneath my boot. A graffiti artist must have scrawled it years ago, not knowing it would mean so much to me now. I felt a surge of defiance. This wasn't just about Emily or even about me. It was about every veteran who'd been betrayed by broken promises and bureaucratic smokescreens. I straightened, squared my shoulders, and pushed the door open, stepping out into the atrium's glare. The keynote had ended. People drifted in clusters, talking, checking phones. On the massive LED screen above the stage, the Blue Harbor logo pulsed until it switched to an emergency notification. Security alert. This facility is under review for unauthorized data breach. All employees and guests, please remain calm. A hush fell. Then on the side monitors, I watched as breaking news crawled across the bottom. Exclusive documents reveal VA funds diverted to Blue Harbor Investments. Investigative reporter Rachel Kim. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted. Selfies stopped mid-flash. And for the first time tonight, I felt seen not as the brash kid who joined the SEALs, but as a woman who refused to let her family's name be sullied by greed. A guard spotted me near the stairs, raised his hand, and started toward me. My heart spiked, but I didn't bolt. Instead, I walked calmly into the flow of executives and engineers, chest high, chin up. I saw Emily pale, her heels clacking as she chased after me. But I didn't look back. I walked straight at a camera, one of the broadcast crews that had set up for the launch, and raised my hand to wave. The lens swiveled, focused. In that moment, my reflection shimmered on the glass, me in my blazer tie, loose hair slightly disheveled, someone who'd risked everything for justice. The camera operator hesitated, then panned down. I felt the weight of 1,000 eyes. That was the risk, letting the world see me before I could vanish, before security grabbed me. My phone buzzed again, Rachel's reply. "We're live. Thank you." I snapped a last glance toward the doors. Outside, Seattle's skyline stretched against a darkening sky. The Space Needle's tip was lit. I took a deep breath, steel against steel, and turned on my heel, walking back toward the stairwell. If I disappeared into the shadows now, they'd think I was a criminal. If I stayed, they'd arrest me. But I had one more move. I slipped through a service door and into an unlit hallway marked authorized personnel only. The compass graffiti guided me north, meant exit. I followed the corridor, heart hammering. My foot scuffed on something metallic, the metal of camaraderie half buried behind a maintenance cart. I picked it up, ran my thumb over its dent, and slipped it into my coat, a final symbol honor carrying me through the chaos. I reached a back exit and pushed locked. Panic flared. I rattled the handle. "Shit," I muttered. Then I saw the fire door symbol and kicked it with all my weight. The latch clicked. The door swung open onto a narrow fire escape overlooking the alley behind the building. A single bulb flickered. Rain from an earlier drizzle still clung to concrete. I climbed down the metal rungs, each creak under my boots sounding like a drumbeat. At ground level, I slipped into the wet, night heart-racing pulse loud enough to drown out the distant sirens. I paused, head tipped back, breathing in the cold air. I was soaked, trembling, but free. The world had seen Blue Harbor's dirty dealings, Emily's betrayal, and Sarah Thompson's reckoning. I touched my phone, another alert, more media outlets pinging. My story was live, and I had nowhere to hide. My phone rang, Marcus. I answered before it went to voicemail. "They're coming," a calm voice said. "Cameras, cops, everyone." I nodded into the darkness. "I know," I whispered. "Meet me at the old docks in 10. He was silent for a second. "Be safe." I hung up, pocketed the phone, tightened my coat around me. The neon glow of a late-night cafe sign flickered across the street. I squared my shoulders and started toward it. The compass in my coat told me north. My medal told me why. The world would wake up tomorrow to their own failure, but tonight I'd walked through fire and come out holding my honor. I stepped under the cafe's awning shadows, pooling at my feet. Rain began to fall again, soft and steady, like a cleansing. I raised my face to the sky, letting the drops mix with the salt of adrenaline and relief. This wasn't over. My family's lies still lingered, and Emily would regroup. But I'd made my move. Someone had to. And if you ask me, I'd say that was worth every risk. I pushed open the cafe door, and the bell above chimed. Inside, a lone barista looked up. I nodded once, dripping wet, and she ducked behind the counter. I slid onto a stool, stared at the empty chair beside me, and realized something had changed. I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was the one who forced the door open. A story's climax usually ends with triumph, but real life waits for no curtain call. It's messy, unfinished. I took a shaky sip of coffee, bitter, grounding, honest. The world outside was watching, and I had just begun. Rain spattered the cafe window as I slid off the stool and folded my elbows on the polished wood counter, watching the ice clink in my coffee. The barista was eyeing me, probably wondering why a wet rat in a blazer was staring into nothing. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, I'm at the docks, expecting you." I paid my tab, wrapped my soaked coat tighter, and stepped back into the chill Seattle night. The compass I'd liberated from Emily's desk hung heavy in my coat pocket, its needle still twitching toward truth. The medal of camaraderie tucked inside felt like a weight and a promise I wasn't alone. I was carrying every man and woman whose lives Emily had gambled with. I jogged toward the pier's neon signs and shipping containers bleeding into one another in the dark until I saw Marcus's lanky silhouette leaning against the rail. The sonar of foghorns underscored the tension between us. He didn't say hi. Instead, he handed me a USB drive. Rachel's lawyer wants a recording of Emily admitting guilt. Without it, she can bury the story. My gut twisted. We'd already risked everything. Had I missed this step, I slid the drive into my palm. "Where do I get that?" I asked. He looked away toward the water. "You remember the gala at the VA fundraiser?" Emily couldn't stop bragging about her creative accounting to the gala MC Damian Gray. I recorded it with my smartwatch. My breath caught. I'd been too busy storms of emails and leaks to think of that night, cottages by Lake Washington, fancy suits, politicians sipping Chardonnay while vets circled empty chairs. Marcus had been off-duty, sitting at the back. He'd captured Emily's laughter as she described redirecting funds. That audio, he said, would seal the deal. I clenched my fist around the drive, feeling the metal edge press into my palm. "Let's hear it," I said. We ducked into a maintenance shed stuffed with fishing gear and crates. The door moaned shut. Marcus plugged the drive into my phone. A WAV file popped up. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm most proud of this year is how efficiently we've repurposed PTSD grants into our R&D pipeline." Emily's voice, crisp, corporate, floated from the small speaker. I felt nausea, rage, relief. Every syllable was the betrayal of a lifetime. I pressed stop, looked at Marcus. "We have everything." He nodded. "But now you've painted a target on your back." I traced the compass outline stitched into the pocket seam of my coat. All the more reason to finish this. We slipped back into the fog-laced pier audio concealed in my pocket, ready to upload at first light. But a blinking red light on my phone stopped me. News alerts. Blue Harbor issued a statement calling the breach a hostile cyber attack, promising a full criminal prosecution of the perpetrator. Emily had already spun her narrative I was the villain. My chest constricted. They'd rally public sympathy around family betrayal, cast me as a rogue veteran-turned-tech saboteur. I swallowed the lump in my throat, reaching for the compass to calm the storm. "They're going to come for me," I said. Marcus's face hardened. Then we make it count before they do. I looked out at the water waves slapping pilings in defiance of calm. The city skyline wavered in the distance, Titan glass towers hosting fortunes built on dreams or deceit. It all looked the same now. I squared my shoulders. First thing tomorrow, we publish the audio and the documents. Then we go for the VA Oversight Committee meeting. We follow the money expose every hand that reached in. He cracked a tired smile. You always were fearless. I held up the medal of camaraderie around my neck. This isn't about fear. It's about honor. We parted at dawn he to rally support me to prepare for the storm. I watched him disappear into the mist before slinking back to my apartment in Fremont. Inside, I hung my blazer on the door, peeled off jeans drenched with salt and grit, and stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror. The same eyes that had faced mortar fire now haunted by simpler betrayals. I pressed my fingertips over the compass in my coat pocket, feeling the cold brass through fabric. Memorizing its weight anchored me north was truth, and I had a path. I booted up my laptop, drafted the press release for Rachel links to the VA spreadsheets, Emily's emails, plus Damian Gray's recorded introduction to the audio. My finger hovered over send, but then my phone lit up a text from an unknown number. You've played your hand. Choose public disgrace or private ruin, no name, no number. Emily's style bully tactics from a sister once entrusted with my care. My heart raced. What else did she have? I locked the door, pacing the small living room littered with CPAC coffee cups and PTSD resource pamphlets I'd collected while consulting for veterans groups. I considered hiding the compass, the metal symbols of my resolve, in a safe place. But they were my lodestar. I slid both into an inside pocket and pressed send on the email to Rachel. Instantly, a confirmation ping received. Publishing at 9:00 a.m. PST. Stand by. 8 hours to dawn. 8 hours until my entire life got shredded or vindicated. I sat on the threadbare couch and dialed Marcus. His voice crackled. Servers are ready. Media prepped. Relief and dread tangled in my chest. I let the compass rest between my fingers. I'll meet you at the oversight hearing. Wear your uniform, it's your best armor. He chuckled. You know your way with symbols. I hung up, paced until my phone's battery died. Then I sat in silence. Rain tapped the window like a countdown. Dawn would decide the future. When morning came, I shaved my head one last time and donned my seal hoodie over slacks military casual, a nod to who I was. I clipped the medal to the drawstring, the compass looped around my neck like a pendant. As I walked to the bus stop, neighbors gave me curious glances. They knew my story. Local girl turned SEAL comes home to tech stardom. Now this. I'd become their gossip, their anxiety. But I held my head high. This was bigger than me. I boarded the southbound bus, sat by the window, watching the city reel past in puddles and neon. My phone buzzed Rachel's live link, her headline already trending. Whistleblower exposes VA scandal inside Blue Harbor AI. My chest clenched. Clicking it opened a video feed of Emily in a polished studio set. Her eyes rimmed red, delivering a tearful apology. I made mistakes. I never intended to harm veterans. Her words spilled onto my screen, but the feed cut mid-sentence as Rachel switched to my statement. Emily Thompson systematically siphoned millions from veterans' mental health programs into corporate profits. We have the audio. My voice rang out clear and calm. The crowd in the plaza outside Blue Harbor's headquarters erupted. I felt goosebumps. I gripped the compass. Symbols matter. Today, I wore mine openly. I slipped off the bus at downtown's grand courthouse steps where the Senate VA oversight hearing was convening. Reporters swarmed in windbreakers, cameras rolling. I drew in a steady breath and walked up the marble stairs, every eye on the metal glinting against my hoodie. Inside the chamber, senators flanked a semicircle of chairs. Emily sat at one end, head bowed. I took a seat next to Marcus. He wore a crisp VA jacket, and we exchanged a small nod. The hearing began with pleasantries, then they played Damian Gray's introduction clip and the audio. Emily's face drained of color. She tried to interject, but Senator Bailey banged his gavel. "Let us hear the witness in question first." They called me to the stand. My legs felt like jelly, but I stood tall, handed the senators printed binders of documents, and recited the Timeline Gala Recording Fund transfers internal memos. Every word was a bullet of truth. The room hung on my voice. They grilled me questions about access motives, risk. I answered direct, heart-heavy, but unbroken. These stakes felt more lethal than any ambush I'd faced overseas. I watched Emily's sisterly mask melt into raw panic. The final blow came when I held up the compass and medal. These artifacts guided me through war zones. They remind me that honor points north always. I followed them here to expose a betrayal at home. Silence engulfed the chamber. Then chairs, scraped murmurs, rippled pens, scratched notes. The session adjourned without applause. This was justice, not theater. Outside, as I descended the steps, sunlight fractured through storm clouds, painting rainbows over concrete. Reporters clamored, "Sarah Thompson, will you press charges? How do you feel about your sister's apology?" I paused at the bottom step, heart thumping. Emily's car idled beside the curb. She stepped out, uniform, sleeves rolled, eyes hollow. She met my gaze and said, "I'm sorry." That 4-syllable echo hit me beneath the ribcage. I swallowed over the compass lodged in my pocket. "Your apology is a start," I said, voice low. "But it doesn't restore what you took." She nodded, tears tracking down her cheeks. I turned away. The metal felt warm against my chest. I realized I wasn't the same girl who left for boot camp. I was someone who carved a path through storm clouds, guided by truth and solidarity. I walked down the sidewalk, rainbows flickering at my heels, knowing the fight wasn't over. Empathy and accountability had to be rebuilt piece by piece. I glanced over my shoulder. Emily stood alone, car lights humming. Then I stepped into traffic and away, ready for whatever came next. When I finally pushed through the front door of my Fremont loft that evening, rain still dripping from my boots, I didn't turn on the lights. Instead, I let the door swing closed behind me and stood in the half-dark, the compass and metal heavy in my hand, their brass gleaming faintly in the street lamp glow filtering through the blinds. My heart still thundered from the VA oversight, hearing the weight of every eye in that chamber pressing down on me like an anchor. But there, in the hush of the empty room, the compass's needle trembled, nudging me toward something I couldn't name. The medal of camaraderie lay cool against my palm, a shard of shared history reminding me why I soldiered on, because honor and truth were worth every risk. I closed my eyes and let the night's silence wash over me, listening to the steady tick of my racing pulse. I set the compass on the kitchen counter next to a stack of coffee mugs from Veterans for Wellness, each one a silent testimony to someone saved, someone lost, someone clinging to hope. I sank onto the couch where the worn fabric still smelled faintly of last week's strategy session with Eliza and the new recruits. In my mind, I replayed the senators' faces, watched Emily's apology flood the headlines, felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder as we left the chamber. I thought of the VA officers who'd turned away vets in crisis, of the shell companies built on lies, of the gulf that yawned between tech ambition and human need. And I felt beneath the adrenaline hangover that this fight was far from over. Tomorrow, I would wake early to join Eliza at the community center to run the new PTSD workshop built on real funds, returning to real people. By noon, I'd be on a call with Senator Bailey's staff planning the next hearing. By evening, I'd interview with Rachel Kim's podcast on civic responsibility. But tonight, I just needed to breathe. I closed my eyes again. Then I heard a soft click at the window, the sliding of a latch. My pulse skipped. I wasn't alone. I crept out of the couch's shadows, heart pounding so loud I could almost hear my own blood surge. The window beside the dining table was ajar. Rain pooled on the sill. Someone had climbed in. I flicked on the overhead light, flooding the room in sudden brightness, and froze at the sight the compass was gone from the counter. My chest tightened, arms shaking. Whoever'd broken in had taken it. My lodestar, my token of truth, vanished. I rushed to the counter, spotted the medal still lying in a shallow drawer. I snatched it and pressed it to my heart, breathing hard. The compass, my private proof, now in unknown hands. I backed into the hallway, heart drumming, and heard footsteps shuffling in the bedroom. I crept forward, fists clenched. "Who's there?" My voice caught. No answer. Only the quiet rustle of fabric as someone rifled through my papers on the desk. Veteran resource pamphlets, my testimony notes, a folder labeled Oversight Hearing. My stomach knotted. I spun, eyes scanning for an intruder. But the loft was empty. I was standing face to face with my own shadow. No one to confront. Just the echo of theft and the betrayal of space I thought I owned. I jabbed at the phone thumb, hitting the screen to call Marcus, but my hands trembled too much. Instead, I texted, "Got broken into. Compass stolen. I need backup." Seconds later, his reply, "On my way." Relief slammed into me, but beneath it, a new current of fear. If someone wanted the compass, they wanted to cripple me. To steal my moral compass as surely as they'd swiped the brass arrow. Why was it Emily's people? Corporate security, or someone darker. Someone who'd watched me too closely. I sank into the nearest chair, pressed the metal between my fingers, and let the room's silence close in. My life felt suddenly unmoored. I tapped my ear, heard the faint roar of traffic outside, then the distant siren of a police cruiser. Marcus would come, but by the time he got here, the intruder was gone, and all I had was a broken lock and a gaping sense of violation. After what felt like hours, I heard voices below the low rumble of Marcus's deep tone, the squeak of my front door. I hurried to the entryway just as he stepped inside, flashlight in hand. "Sarah," he called, voice tight. I led him through the apartment, watching his jaw tighten as he surveyed the ransacked desk, the empty counter where the compass had rested. "They hit you hard," he said quietly. "This wasn't random." I sucked in a breath. They wanted that compass. He frowned, shining the light across the floor. "Or what it represents. Your history, your integrity. Whoever did this aims to break you." My throat burned. They can steal brass, but they can't steal truth. He pressed a hand to my shoulder. "We'll get it back." But I shook my head. "No, Marcus. This isn't about recovery. It's about knowing how deep they're willing to go." He opened his mouth, then closed it, uncertainty flickering across his face. I stepped back, clutched the metal tighter, and felt the first crack of fear widen inside me. If they'd infiltrated my sanctuary, no place was safe. My phone buzzed, 3 missed calls. Eliza Senator Bailey's aide and an unknown number. I stared at the screen. What choice did I have now but move forward? I lifted the metal, its dent glowing under the hallway light like a beacon. I planted my feet and made a decision tomorrow I would wear it publicly. Around my neck, at the community center workshop, pinned to my uniform, at the next Senate call, used as evidence of my resolve. If they wanted to steal my compass, I'd wear my honor where everyone could see it. And I'd press on because every veteran who'd been betrayed needed me to. I exhaled, felt the sting of tears threaten, but I blinked them back. This was more than a fight for funds or justice. It was a fight for every private truth we choose to live by, every oath we swear, every betrayal we refuse to accept. I set the metal on the coffee table, turned off the lights, and walked to the window, peering out at the darkened street. Rain slicked the pavement, lights blurred into streaks. In that moment, I realized how vulnerable we all are when we let go of our guiding stars. Mine had been stolen, but the night sky was still above me, constellations unchanged. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass and whispered, "Show me the way." And in the hush of the storm-lashed night, I felt a whisper of wind stir the metal of the metal on the table as if answering back north is your own heart. I straightened, heart pounding with newfound purpose, and turned away from the window. The next dawn would bring confrontation questions I wasn't ready to ask, and answers I might not like. But I would meet them head on, because the only compass that truly mattered was the one I carried inside. The world could steal my artifacts, but it could never steal my resolve. I closed my eyes, letting that certainty anchor me even as thunder rumbled in the distance, an echo of the storm I knew was coming. The pre-dawn sky was a slate sheet over Seattle when I woke, heart pounding from dreams of empty hands. I sat up in my loft, the metal of camaraderie resting on the edge of the nightstand, its dented brass glinting in the faint streetlight. The compass was gone, stolen, and without it, I felt as directionless as a ship in fog. But tonight, I would change that. I slipped the metal into my pocket, its weight a tether to every life I'd sworn to protect. I pulled on a black hoodie, the one that still smelled like VA offices and late-night strategy sessions, and laced-up boots that had sprinted through sand and snow. My reflection in the window was someone I barely recognized, eyes sharp with purpose, shoulders squared for a mission I almost didn't believe I was ready for. I grabbed my bag, inside a flash drive loaded with evidence of the mind-reading AI prototypes, the audio from the gala, the spreadsheet showing funds redirected and slipped out into the chilly morning air. By 8, I was at the Veterans Community Center guiding a circle of rough-hewn men and women through a breathing exercise. The walls were plastered with posters for job fairs and PTSD support groups, but the room buzzed with unspoken pain. I closed my eyes and shared how I'd once learned to steady my mind before a mission. Find the center of your chaos, focus on your will to live, then let that will carry you through the worst of it. I opened my eyes to see hopeful faces. For a moment, the compass wasn't missing. The metal glinted at my waist, a miracle in metal. After the session, a young vet with haunted eyes slipped me a slip of paper, Warehouse 14, Pier 70 tonight. They're shipping something. It was scribbled in shaky ink, but it smelled like truth. My pulse raced. If that was where the thieves stored their loot, that could be where my compass waited. I nodded at him, offering the smallest smile I could muster. No promises, just gratitude. As I left, the morning light scarred the pavement in silver lines. I felt the calm before the storm fall across me, and I whispered to the empty room, "Tonight we get it back." I spent the afternoon pacing my apartment, tapping at maps on my phone, plotting entry points, security blind spots, and escape routes. By dusk, I had a plan: sneak in through an unguarded dock gate, slip past the shipping containers, and into Warehouse 14 under the cover of darkness. I checked my bag one last time, a small LED flashlight, lock-picking tools I'd learned to use as a SEAL pepper spray, and that ever-crucial flash drive. The VA office had loaned me their old security badge, expired, but enough to bypass electronic sensors with a quick hack. I draped the metal around my neck like a talisman, then clipped on an ID that read Sarah Thompson, Trauma Services Consultant. I didn't like the lie, but sometimes you had to dress the part to do the right thing. My breath came out in white puffs as I jogged toward the pier, the compass bar and grill's neon sign flickering behind me. Rain threatened, but I welcomed it. Water was a cloak for secrets. Once at the chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, I slipped through a hole just big enough and dropped into a muddy alley behind Warehouse 14. The warehouse loomed, windows dark and looming. I slid along its edge until I found a side door with peeling paint. The guard post inside was empty, just a half-eaten sandwich and a spilled coffee cup. I dusted for prints mentally and then set to work. Lockpicking felt like second nature, smooth and precise, and within seconds, the door clicked open. Inside, the smell of oil and sea brine mingled with industrial chemicals. I eased in flashlight beam, low scanning rows of crates labeled Confidential Blue Harbor Assets. I passed boxes of marketing swag, hardware prototypes, even crates stamped prototype AI module do not open. Then I spotted a smaller crate set apart, marked in thick black marker, "Personal belongings, Sarah Thompson." I froze. My throat tightened. This was it. I knelt, unlatching the crate's clasp, and inside, cushioned by foam, lay my compass, its brass casing scratched but intact next to a small box of photographs. Me in uniform, me shaking hands with veterans, me standing on that rooftop after the breach. Holding the compass sent a jolt through my veins, the needle swinging wildly before settling north. I cracked a breathless smile, brushing my thumb over the dent. But relief was cut short by a low mechanical hum. A hidden motion sensor had tripped. A panel slid open down the cavernous wall, revealing a hatch. Before I could step back, a spotlight snapped on, illuminating me like a spotlight on a stage glass, shards shimmering on the concrete floor. A voice crackled through hidden speakers. "Well, well, Sarah Thompson. Brave enough to come back," I spun, heart racing. And there, emerging from the shadows, was not Emily or a corporate goon, but Marcus, cap brim, low face, grim. My pulse thundered against my ribs. "Marcus, what the hell?" He stepped forward, phone in hand, recording light blinking. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but I couldn't let you do this alone." Confusion and relief warred in my chest. "You set me up," I whispered, fury coiling. He shook his head, stepping closer. "I did it so we could expose the bigger stakes. I put the tracker on that crate in case you needed a way out. But I also wanted proof of what they're hiding." He opened a folder strapped to his side, blueprints for an illegal neuro-AI interface data mining veterans' brainwaves to sell behavioral algorithms. My breath caught. This was more than stolen artifacts. This was a breach of souls. "They are harvesting trauma," he said quietly. "Your workshops, your hearing, that was small potatoes. This is the real crime." I collapsed against the crate compass, held like a lifeline. The metal thudded against my chest. The steel truths swirled around me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice shaking. His eyes flickered with something like guilt. "I had to make sure you were committed. Once you'd risked everything, the compass, the hearing, your reputation, you'd fight to the end." I sank to my knees, puzzle pieces snapping into place. The break-in, the missing compass. Emily's public apology, an orchestrated spectacle to distract from the lab's horrors. "Then let's end this," I said, rising. "We have to get this evidence out." Marcus nodded, handing me the flash drive. "Lead the way." We moved as one through the warehouse, picking our steps around motion sensors and faint red beams. Every turn felt like stepping through an electric field, too close to be safe, too wide to map perfectly. At a bank of locked doors stamped "Authorized Personnel, Neuro AI RR&DD," Marcus hacked a keypad while I stood watch. The door clicked open. Inside, glass-walled laboratories hummed with servers and cages holding antiquated VR headsets wired to test subjects, sleeping veterans in full gear, hooked up to brain monitoring arrays. Their chests rose and fell shallowly, as if trapped in dream worlds we had no right to invade. My stomach twisted, and I felt bile rise. This was the betrayal of a lifetime. I scanned the room for cameras. A blinking red light at the corner of the ceiling gave me a target. I yanked the bulb from its socket, plunging us into semi-darkness. My heart pounded in my ears as I sprinted to one of the sleeping quarters and pulled off a headset, freeing a veteran's wrist strapped to a data port. He stirred, eyes unfocused, then blinked awake. He saw me, fear and recognition flashing. "Who are you?" he croaked. I knelt and pressed the compass into his hand. "Someone who's going to save you," I rasped. "We're getting you out." He nodded slowly, and I realized then how our moral compasses are nothing without people tethered to them. I clipped the flash drive to my belt, tucked the compass away, and led him out as Marcus did the same with two more. Alarms blared. Red strobes flooded the hallway. Security guards shouted radio codes into shoulder mics. We were exposed. We bolted down the corridor, neon exit signs our only guide. My chest heaved, adrenaline spiking every nerve. I slammed through a heavy door and we spilled onto a fire escape overlooking the dock. Rain pelted us, drenching my hoodie, but I didn't care. I counted 3 guards behind us. The veteran I'd freed stumbled and I half carried him. Marcus sprinted to a ladder, helping another out. As I climbed boots, skidding on wet rungs, I felt the weight of countless betrayals break into purpose. At the top, I turned to see Emily standing on the warehouse roof, rain plastering her hair to her cheeks, eyes blazing with betrayal and fury. "You betrayed me first, Sarah," she shouted over the storm. "You made this personal." I held up the compass, its needle steady. I followed it, I yelled back, "And it led me here to you." Then I leapt to the next fire escape across a narrow gap, landing hard, jarring my shoulder. Marcus was already there, helping the veteran I'd carried. We tumbled to the ground, sprinting into the night. The compass thudded against my chest, the metal glinting at my throat. By the time we reached a waiting van, Eliza at the wheel, engine idling, I was soaked, exhausted, but alive with resolve. The veteran I'd freed leaned back, breathing hard, but smiling weakly. "Thank you," he whispered. I pressed a hand to his shoulder, then closed the door. Eliza drove us away as sirens wailed behind. In the rearview mirror, I saw the warehouse's lights recede, rain-soaked at the pier like a scar on the city's edge. The flash drive was safe, the evidence real, the compass reclaimed. But the night's events had shifted something deep inside me. Family betrayal had morphed into a larger fight, tech hubris versus human dignity, corporate power versus the sanctity of mind and memory. And Emily, she would not go quietly. As we pulled onto the main road, I pressed the compass's needle against my heart through the hoodie fabric. It throbbed with truth and purpose. I looked at Eliza in the passenger seat, her eyes bright with shared conviction, and realized I didn't have to carry this alone anymore. The compass had pointed me north to the hard truth I'd needed to win, and now I knew that honor wasn't just mine to bear. It belonged to everyone we'd saved tonight. We drove into the storm until the city lights blurred into ribbons. Dawn was still hours away, but somewhere beneath the clouds, I sensed a sliver of pink promise. I tapped the metal at my throat, feeling its curve beneath my fingers. "We've got it," I said quietly. "Now let's make it count." Eliza nodded, and I pulled out my phone to call Rachel, ready to release everything. But then my signal cut out, no bars. The van slowed. Ahead on the boulevard, I saw flashing lights and a blockade. Another layer of complication, another fight to face. I took a breath, the compass's silent hum echoing inside me, and whispered, "Here we go, again." The dashboard clock glowed 2:13 a.m. as Eliza steered the van down Alaskan Way tires, hissing on rain-slick pavement. Marcus sat in back with the veteran I'd rescued, both rattled but alive, clutching the flash drive and the stolen audio. I crouched in the passenger seat, compass and metal tucked beneath my hoodie, heart pounding against ribs like a trapped bird. The blockade loomed ahead, a line of unmarked black SUVs, their headlights slicing through the night like searching eyes. Orange traffic cones and metal barriers formed a crude choke point manned by figures in tactical gear. A row of steel bollards blocked the road beyond. My breath caught. This was no random police sweep, it was a corporate-fueled dragnet. "Eliza, slow down," I whispered, voice tight. "They're waiting for us." She slowed the van to a crawl. A spotlight pierced the windshield. Voices crackled from bullhorns. "This is a secure zone. Step out of the vehicle with your hands up." I swallowed. "They'll seize the evidence." I glanced at Marcus, whose eyes were wide in the rearview mirror. The veteran James pressed a hand to my shoulder. No words, just solidarity. I drew in a steadying breath, chest pulsing with fear and resolve. "Plan," Eliza mouthed. I tapped my temple. "Follow my lead." I clicked the seatbelt off and edged toward the sliding door. "When they open, fire distraction only, I'm going for it." Her jaw clenched. "Sarah, you can't!" I gave her a small, fierce smile. "I can. I have to." The SUV doors slid open. Men with rifles emerged, silhouettes rigid under the floodlights. I slid from the van before they could shout again, feet hitting the asphalt. Rain pelted my face. Adrenaline ignited every nerve. I drew the compass from under my hoodie, pressed it into my palm. North, yes, truth. I shouted run and sprinted directly toward the barrier. Guns barked overhead and tires screeched as Eliza gunned the engine and veered left, crashing through cones to draw pursuers away. The blockade guards pivoted, unable to ignore the van racing off, lights spinning. I seized the moment. I vaulted the metal bollard's compass, clutched tight, and darted toward the chain-link fence that bordered the pier. Bullets thumped behind me, no time to count frames. I yanked off my hoodie, tossed it aside to slow the guard's aim. The fence was low. I scaled it in 2 agile moves, glove-scraping wire. I dropped to the other side, compass pocketed again, and sprinted along the pier, heart hammering so loud I could taste it. My plan was vague, but simple. Reach the waterfront press stage where Rachel's crew had set up. Under the rain, the press tents formed a ragged line of fluorescent tents and satellite dishes aimed at the black box pier warehouse scene of last night's raid. My phone buzzed a text from Rachel. "Go live, Sarah. We're ready." I sprinted, dodging crates and puddles toward the bright cameras. Then I heard a shout. Marcus's voice strained Sarah. "Wait!" I spun. He and James emerged from the shadows, flanked by 2 of the freed veterans, courage etched on their faces. I hesitated. If I go without them, they'll be captured. If I wait, the press feed will go live without my evidence. My chest constricted. Every instinct screamed, save them first. But another voice, deeper and older, echoed duty before self. The press tent lights shifted and Rachel's face materialized on the feed eye's anxious microphone in hand, surrounded by cameramen. Thousands were tuning in. I clenched my jaw. "Give me 2 minutes," I shouted back to Marcus. He nodded, drawing James and the vets further off the pier to fences cover. I turned and ran toward the tent. 30 yards out, I crashed through the canvas flap, cameras swiveled. I held up the flash drive-drenched pants, muddy chest heaving. "I'm Sarah Thompson. Last night, I exposed how Blue Harbor and the VA conspired to steal millions from veterans' PTSD funds and experiment on our trauma with untested AI. Here's the evidence." I thrust the drive at Rachel. She caught it with a startled nod. I watched as she plugged it into her laptop on a folding table. Her screen lit with folder after folder of spreadsheets, emails, architecture diagrams for a neural interface prototype. A hush fell across the pier broadcast. Reporters scribbled, cameras zoomed. I glanced over my shoulder. Corporate security guards were approaching from the warehouse door, rifles ready. I felt the cold edge of panic, but I stood firm, chest broad. In that moment, the metal of camaraderie pressed against my sternum, a constant reminder that I was not alone, that every vet I freed, every soldier who trusted me was with me now. I turned back to Rachel. "Go live." She hesitated, then hit broadcast. Across screens and mobile phones, journalists heard my voice ring out. The Department of Defense, in collusion with Blue Harbor AI, has weaponized veteran trauma for profit and political control. These documents reveal targeted transfers of PTSD grants into shell companies, and this video she pressed play on her laptop proves VA executives laughing about it at a private gala. Damian Gray's smug voice echoed. Behind me, the guards paused, overshadowed by the weight of public scrutiny. A river of viewers surged, the live comments section exploded. My chest swelled with a fierce triumph. I met Rachel's eyes, she mouthed. "We've got them." But then a new twist. The corporate security commander, a massive figure in a ballistic vest, raised his rifle. "Everyone down," he roared. The guards moved to flank me. In that instant, spotlights snapped on across the pier. FBI agents streamed in from the dockside, badges flashlit. Agent Daniels, whom I'd briefed earlier via a secure tip, strode forward, hands on his sidearm. "Stand down! Security!" he barked. Confusion flickered across the commander's face before he lowered his weapon. My legs nearly buckled. I realized this was bigger than corporate muscle. It was federal enforcement answering the call of justice. The compass and metal seemed to hum with power as agents cuffed the guards. Marcus and James emerged, pressing through the tent flaps. Rachel cut the feed to a raw press conference. Senator Bailey, on urgent notice, strode in alongside Agent Daniels. Bailey raised his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have enough probable cause to launch a full criminal investigation into Blue Harbor AIVA misconduct and neuroexperimentation abuses. Thanks to Ms. Thompson's courage, we can protect our veterans now." Relief and triumph washed over me, so powerful it blurred vision. I felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder. He said softly, "You did it." I clutched the compass in my fist, tears pricking. For years, I'd chased silence and lies. Now I'd channeled every betrayal into this moment of reckoning. The press corps erupted in questions. Rachel thrust her mic forward. "Sarah, what's next?" I took a breath, voice stronger than I ever thought possible. "Next, we support real oversight, real care. We rebuild trust." But then I heard a soft sob behind me. I turned to see Emily escorted down the pier by an FBI agent, face streaked with tears and mascara. She looked small and hollow. For a heartbeat, my old sister, the one I once fought to save, stood before me in a hoodie, too big skirt, soaked shoes, scuffed. The empire she'd built crumbled around her. The weight of everything we'd been through pressed between us, years of silence, betrayal, longing for approval. I swallowed. Marcus nudged me gently. "She's her own reckoning now." I nodded, heart thudding. I stepped forward, every eye trained on us. I offered Emily a hand. She took it, trembling. Cameras whirled. The metal pressed into my chest, compass in hand. I realized this story wasn't just about exposing lies. It was about confronting the wounds that division and ambition carve in families, and the power of truth to heal or shatter. We stood together, two sisters once divided by pride and silence, now bound by accountability under the neon glare of news cameras. My voice cracked over the bullhorn. "This ends tonight. Let's start the work of healing." The crowd murmured. Flashes popped. Emily's shoulders shook. I swallowed against the knot in my throat. This was my greatest mission, not simply to bring down a corrupt machine, but to rebuild something real where we'd broken. The rain had stopped. A halo of dawn light touched the horizon. And yet, as I met Emily's red-rimmed eyes, I felt a final fracture trust can't be restored in a single moment. Our family's wounds ran deeper than stolen funds or database hacks. There were debts of love and time that no congressional hearing could repay. I squeezed her hand, an unspoken promise, and turned to face the rising sun over Elliott Bay. In that glimmer of morning, I felt both victory and vertigo. The world had changed, but me, I was still finding my true north. Behind me, the press began to follow the sisters' story as a tale of redemption. Newscasters labeled it family betrayal and redemption, but I knew the real story was just beginning. I exhaled into the crisp air, heart pounding with a mix of relief and anticipation. The next chapter, I didn't know. All I knew was that honor wasn't a destination, but a path you walked every day, guided by the compass of your convictions, and I had it back right here in my hand. I turned away from the camera, shoulder to shoulder with Emily, and we walked back toward the pier's exit, footsteps echoing against the wooden planks. The world watched, but whatever came next, we'd face it together or apart under the same northern star that had always pointed us home. And as we stepped into the dawn's uncertain glow, I realized I was finally free to choose who I wanted to be.